So it's inside the regular meeting?
Yeah.
Why would we hold a workshop inside the regular meeting?
No, two different things.
Okay.
I'm talking about the
All right, you're on YouTube.
discussion. They have a presentation today.
Oh,
All right, Bill, we're recording and you're on YouTube. Who's
Golden?
Wait,
No.
wait,
Wait.
where's that speaker noise coming from?
It's from Ad. Whoever responds to that.
Oh, that's me. Great. All right, that should be much better now. Thanks, Glenn.
Okay, so then I will call this meeting to order, absent the fact that we do not have elected officers. I believe, Commissioner Walker was the chair last year of this committee and myself as the vice chair. So I would call this meeting to order on February 24th at 10:07 a.m. And I guess the first action item would be to elect the officers and the positions for this board. So I would look for a motion to make that happen.
Fine with you being the chair, Bill, if you want.
I'll move to make Bill the chair.
And then vice chair and secretary.
What are the duties of the secretary and I guess the vice chair would run the meeting if the chair's absent.
I know that in the past, we've always had help from admin on taking the minutes, so I don't know what the secretary's duties
No,
are.
secretary was taking minutes. Trish was taking minutes.
The secretary of the meeting takes the minutes?
Yeah, Trish was taking them.
Oh, was she?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Can't claim to be good at taking minutes.
No one's gonna be able to read my notes,
Right.
most of all me.
I'm in the same boat. I would.
So then how would we play those positions out? Are we okay with having admin help with the minute takings of this audit committee meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so
Great.
then that will
Thanks for that.
relieve some of the duties of the secretary. In what order do you see the positions? Then let's just get them all three in one motion, right?
Okay, I mean, I can take the vice chair.
Are you fine with that?
Yeah, again, as long as I'm not responsible for taking the minutes.
Okay, so we have a motion for myself as the chair, Commissioner Martinez as the vice chair, and Commissioner Hadler as the secretary. That would take a second and then a vote.
I'll second.
Okay,
Okay,
second
you
by,
gotta tell me that again so I can log it or do minutes, not do it minutes.
that would have Commissioner Winfield as chair, Commissioner Martinez as vice chair, Commissioner Hadler as secretary. Motion by Commissioner Martinez, seconded by Commissioner Hadler, all in favor?
All right.
Aye. Okay, we can move on from there. Let's see, we have a citizens to be heard section. Let's see, we have no comments. We will move on to our general business action items then. The approval of the minutes for October 25. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to review them. I did.
I didn't, nor was I present at that
Right,
meeting.
and
so
being
that
as
could-
neither of you were present,
Right.
but I think a review would have been enough, and somebody can just make the motion to approve the minutes as stated.
Move to approve minutes as stated.
I would like, good morning, everyone. Karen Curtin. I did leave some notes. There were a couple typos, which were not a big deal in the minutes.
Trial.
But they're on page 1, it said Karen Curtin, like financial advisor or something along that line. I would prefer audit committee consultant, because a financial advisor does have a specific meaning. It means that I'm advising you regarding bonds and things along that line. If you wouldn't mind making that small change.
Okay, and that's on page 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yes, at the very top.
All three
And-
of them, right there.
Yeah.
Oh, in her notes, I was looking for the actual minutes, because I've got the minutes printed off.
There's a couple of typos. It said
Oh,
something
I
about
see where it is in the minutes, okay.
trail should be trial balance.
I can make the motion here.
Okay,
I move to approve the minutes with the, recommendations from Karen to, amend.
And I think, thank you. And at the bottom of page 2, I'm not sure what that meant, but maybe we just strike that sentence. Karen recommended that in the future, and then there's nothing after that.
okay, I see that, yes. All right, so we've got a motion and a second, all in favor?
Thank
All
you.
right, those pass unanimously with changes recommended by our audit committee consultant, Karen.
Yes, it'd be perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Get that title down correct. And so then we don't have a document here, but I'm wondering where we are with the audit report from the internal auditor. And do we have Cody? Did we reach him?
Cody wouldn't be able to join until 10:30.
Until 10:30, so let's circle back to item 2. Where are we at time wise? That's about another 18 minutes away.
I can, you want me to?
Well, we've got other stuff. We'll follow on here. We'll move on then to item 3, which is the EFG internal audit, which is Cody also, so I'm guessing we want to wait on discussion around that. Any thoughts, anybody here?
I don't know you guys' agenda, but there's always the opportunity to recess and we'll come back at 10:30 if there's nothing more.
We could go down to bylaws if you wanted to.
Sure, we can go
Start
down,
there,
that
kill some time
doesn't,
that way.
let's go down and work on the bylaws and, so that would be number 5. Bylaws, review and duties of the audit committee. Then we've got the resolution attached as well as, and I discussed this with Mr. Tyner. We've also got the 2018 audit attached, which has the bylaws inside it. And so we, I believe, are going to get those attached to our website,
Yes,
the bylaws, because they currently aren't.
Chairman, I just tried to print the bylaws out of that 18 audit.
Right.
And that's what's after the resolution.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So is that in the? paper?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
On the certain page, it's everything fits that.
Okay, do we have one more of these?
Yes.
Would you like one of these? It's the agenda for today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. So I think just going through these was the plan, just to make sure that we feel like we are following what the requirement here. I believe in the previous minutes, and maybe not in the minutes, but there was some discussion about the fact that Gabe was as needed at the audit committee meetings. And I think it was Mr. Hatterley made the comment that I'm trying to find where it was, that Gabe shouldn't be a part of these as management, and I think I would counter that with the fact I believe Gabe is elected, which takes him out of management. So I don't know why John felt like Gabe shouldn't be a part of these, but I guess I'm opening that up for you guys to chime in, and especially you, Mr. Attorney, because I don't see it as a conflict, but
Do you have a copy of his statement?
John Hatterley statement.
Yeah. Maybe when he gets here, he could clarify. Because I do think it's
well, I
important.
don't know if we have John today, do we?
Oh.
So he won't be coming in.
Okay, do you know what meeting it was in? For me to go back and listen to it? Alright. I can go back and look at or listen to the meeting minutes to see what his basis for the separation was, and if.
I think that was the basis, was just the separation of duties between the clerk's office and the audit committee. The
Right,
fact that this body generally provides some level of oversight to that office.
Okay.
Agreed, and I think that was John's point, I just guess his calling it the management has me wondering, because a lot of what we do in here, we do need some input from Gabe on.
Sure.
So,
I think you could just make it clear when he appears, how he's appearing, and if, be it education, information. I think you have the ability to request.
I think the first one that comes to mind for me is, I know that we had previous problems last year, and we have for several years, I think, with what Gabe calls the component units, not having their bookkeeping done on time, and so
SSDs, whatever.
right, to have some idea of where we are on
She
that.
has her mic unmuted, so
What's that?
she has her mic, and I don't know if the
Karen.
Karen has any thoughts.
Yeah, Karen, feel free to weigh in if you've got some thoughts on that.
Sure. So Gabe, he supervises the external audit.
Yes,
Sorry, the external internal auditor, the contracted internal auditor.
Yes.
Okay, that's his role. I agree, and I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Sir, you're wearing the striped shirt, but I
Stephen.
Stephen
Stephen.
is our county attorney.
Stephen, okay, my apologies.
And I'm normally not here. I got an invitation to come, so I'm less informed than most everybody else here, so.
Well, Stephen, I agree with your assessment that when Gabe is present, it should just be noted that he's there for, to answer questions, to be part of the consultation, but he doesn't have a standing position on the audit committee. So there may be some meetings where he attends and some meetings where he doesn't attend. But also, I believe Bill noted that he is not part of management, correct? He's an elected official.
That's
Yes.
right.
So what I heard. So I concur that, if you need his input, by all means, he should be present. That doesn't mean he needs to be present at every meeting.
no, I agree. And I guess then what that will, in my mind, have to be is that we're gonna have to be real careful putting the agenda together. So that we give him notice of which items that we need him for, because just having an update on if he's making any progress with the component units, as he calls them, to where they have their finances and their bookkeeping in line to where we can move forward with our financial statements on time this year, hopefully. Yes, go ahead.
I'm just looking down here on bullet point 3, under that subheading right there. If no audit committee members have sufficient personal internal control or finance knowledge, the committee must gain the knowledge via a financial expert, either volunteer or paid advisor,
Which is what she is.
Yeah.
which is what Karen is. Okay. perfect,
Yes.
Yeah.
And perhaps since it's a new audit committee, I should make a brief introduction. My name is Karen Curtin. Is that all right, Mr.?
That's great. I appreciate it.
Is that fine? My name is Karen Curtin. I'm located in Dallas. I'm a CPA as well as a certified fraud examiner and a certified government finance officer, which is a Texas GFOA designation. I have 17 years of experience in the public sector. I spent 11 years as a governmental auditor. My largest client was the city of Phoenix in Arizona. After spending 11 years in audit, I was a senior manager at BKD. I decided to step back for a little bit, needed to take care of my parents for a while, and actually went to a local municipality, the town of Highland Park. I was the controller there and finance director for 6 years, and then was invited back to Forvis Mazars. So BKD merged with some other firms and became Forvis, then Forvis Mazars. So I was invited back to lead national practice for government outsourced accounting services. And we responded to your RFP and were selected to assist you. So I'm here in that role just to facilitate your audit committee meetings to whatever extent I can, review the reports that are issued by your external and internal auditors, and see if I can be of service supplementing the information that you have. proposing questions that you may want to ask your external auditor, that you may want to ask your internal auditor. And to that end, I did send a list of ideas that I had for this meeting. Earlier this morning, as you know, the agenda was posted on Friday, so I had the chance to review the documents this morning. So
Karen,
pleasure to meet you.
And nice to meet you as well. What are the dates of your contract? What is it, your term? The term of your contract?
Term of our contract, I believe it's 1 year with option to renew.
Okay.
We just started this, and the first meeting that I attended was in September.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, the only thing I would say, and maybe we move it to the next upcoming agenda, is that we get an update from the clerk auditor as to where we are on the component structure side of his financial statements and whether or not we will be able to get our financial statements. I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Properly on time.
Issued timely.
Right. Issued on time, so. If we can make note of that for the future agenda of this meeting. Is there anything else coming through these bylaws that we want to discuss?
And Vice Chair
I believe-
Martinez, it is 1 year. I did confirm.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you. I do believe that we need to also ask on the future agenda that the financials come to this committee, and then from here, they are forwarded on to the full commission. So the financials that are gonna be appropriately, hopefully on time, that we would see those before that happens, so that we can review them in this audit committee
You're talking about the financials from the component,
and from the entire
okay.
the entire financial statements. I believe the proper flow would be to this committee and then to the full commission. And-
That would be for the annual financial report.
Yes,
Does the county produce either monthly or quarterly financial statements for management? Is there any interim reporting?
to my knowledge, no. I know that there's been some discussion between at least myself and admin that would be something to be getting some kind of a monthly or bi-monthly update moving forward.
I think it would be helpful, you know, at the sort of minimum quarterly financial statements. You could always move to shorter intervals. It may be a difficult task for the finance department to go from no monthly reporting, right, from annual to monthly reporting. You may want to ease them into quarterly first, and then with a goal of monthly. Because it's a task. It's an administrative task to assemble financial statements. So, but quarterly is very appropriate. And in the city that I worked at, we disseminated those to management as well as the Finance and Audit Committee simultaneously. So they were on the quarterly, we did it on a monthly basis, but they were put out simultaneously. And then at year end, the audit committee had consultations with the external auditor and reviewed the financial statement audit and any related comments prior to its dissemination to the full council.
I think that's important, and then I guess the point and the reason that I'm stressing this, I believe that the last 2 years at a minimum, we've been late on our financial statements, and so if we make it a part of the next agenda to have an update from Gabe where we are and make some of these suggestions to him, I think it would be pertinent to at least get that information out to the proper commissioners that sit on those different boards that have been holding up these financial statements, to impress on them the fact that they have to be on time, that it's not a this, it's not a moving target for them, that they have a deadline, and if they don't meet it, then possibly we see if Gabe's, I forget what Stephen Val's title is, but his finance budget individual could help them get those done on time. And I don't think we want to wait until the deadline. We need to put that information and request out in an extremely timely manner.
Components were tardy?
What's that?
Do you recall which components were tardy?
I don't, and I thought
Just
that,
remember that there were SSD.
Yeah, I think it was like, I think it was two of them, if I remember right. but-
and I thought that somebody mentioned all of them were tardy. Now, I don't know if that's,
Was it was the hospital or the human services one? I think it was,
The health,
the health.
basically,
yeah, that's the one that I remember, but I'd have to go back and look.
This is definitely the time to be reaching out because they have 12/31 year ends as does the county, correct? Everyone is on the same fiscal year end.
No, did we not change our fiscal end when we did the audit?
I don't
Oh,
think
I'm
so.
Audit
I
control?
don't
No.
recall that.
Okay,
we cut some kind of a deal with the state auditor.
For calculation.
for calculations, yeah.
Is that all it was
But
just,
not-
Okay, I just
not-
wanted to make sure
not
we
the
didn't change,
actual
we didn't change
total.
our year. Okay.
But I
Yeah.
believe all of the components are on a regular calendar year instead of a fiscal year.
That's mine.
All the ones that I know of.
right, but I
So
think
they're,
Gabe needs their bookkeeping and their information like in July at the
Yeah.
latest, so that he
I
can,
think it's even earlier.
yeah, maybe it was earlier, it might have been June, he mentioned a date.
so, ideally, so this is, the fiscal year ended in December. So now we're 60 days out. This should be the time when the component units are closing their books. They should have engagement letters from their auditor. And that was one of the questions that I had posed is, does the county have an engagement letter set up with Larson? This would be the appropriate time to do so. Frequently, they're done before fiscal year end. So certainly I wouldn't delay until June,
Yeah, I
in order
agree.
to get the county back on a good track. I think this is the time to be asking for engagement letters to see how people are doing, to be scheduling field work, to be setting an appropriate timeline. And that way, your component units and your current auditor will be able to meet a more reasonable deadline.
And I guess my question would be, Mark, do you need any further direction on maybe helping Gabe get something out to our component districts as far as a timeline, as she says, with a very hard deadline?
Yeah, we can work with Gabe on that.
Yeah,
Without you all having to do anything.
and then if there are just a few specific ones, if you could maybe work with whoever the commissioner is that sits on those, so then they can also reiterate that in their next meeting. Because I'm not, it isn't clear to me which ones it was, I don't know.
I think a list of the components would also be helpful, just so we know exactly
Yeah.
what we're.
Yeah, that's a good idea, if we could have a list of those, so then we
I
know
mean, just an entire timeline would be really nice to have
of when we need.
of when all of our deadlines are.
Sure.
The timeline and the list, so.
Right, a
Yeah.
timeline that also includes the financial statements so that we're seeing those at this audit committee prior to them going to the commission in a timely manner so that they're not late. So this would also affect our regular general commission meetings and agenda, and getting them on there for approval.
I'm going to drop in the chat in just a moment, the list of the component units. They're in the financial statements on page, they were page 7 in 22, so they might have moved a little bit, but you have the solid waste special service district.
Right.
There's a special service water district, a recreational district, Canyonlands, Grand County, transportation, and Grand County EMS. So,
Transportation that was late.
I believe there's 6 of them.
Okay.
Was the water district Arches?
I'm not sure if there's another name for that, but it's Solid Waste Special Service District Number 1.
Or,
I'm
not
sorry.
solid waste, the
Water, Grand County Special Service Water District. I don't know if
That would be
if that's related to Arches
Oh,
or
was that
not.
one of our components?
Well, there's
Grant water.
there's a couple of different boards there.
Right.
And so one of those boards was late, or she's
I
just
don't know.
saying that.
That's one of the
Oh,
component
okay.
districts, right, okay. So Arches SSD and Thompson SSD aren't components.
I mean, that's
Okay.
not what you said.
Yeah. I was
It's
just,
not how it's listed in the financial report.
right, okay. I didn't think.
Maybe it goes by another name.
I wasn't sure. I think Brian's probably right. It's probably one of the WISA boards.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it would be good if we could find out which ones were late, Mark, if we could, and then we can encourage them. And we need to encourage all of them, I guess, to be timely, not just those.
I've served on rec and I know they're very good about getting
Yeah,
all their.
I think they just hired a new bookkeeper also, the rec.
Yeah, Marcia left, I think, finally, after a long time.
Well, Mark, is that something that you get to us? Is just a timeline of when all the due dates are?
Yeah.
Guess a part of these bylaws we can come back to when we do have the internal auditor on.
Should be any minute, it's 10:30.
Anything on the hotline right here that we want to look at?
I think Karen mentioned the hotline. I know that in the 2018 audit that was performed on Grand County, it was one of the, I don't know if it was a recommendation or a requirement that we have a hotline at the county level. And so I'd have to go back and read the verbiage around that.
Did we discuss that? Was that in the September meeting?
We did discuss that somewhere.
Cody's on it. I think he's got conflicts coming up, so if you guys can.
Okay, get Cody in. Right away.
Okay, is he live then?
He's coming up.
Can you hear us?
Hello.
Hello, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you, Bill. Yep.
Okay, thank you. We've got you on as the number 2 agenda item, the audit report from the internal auditor. And I know there was a little bit of discussion last year, and maybe if you could let us know where you are on that.
Yes, I will. Just give me one moment to pull up an email. I sent an email to Kevin Walker when he was the chair last year. And the request that I received back from the committee in October was you would like to look at the restricted funds and do an analysis of all the restricted funds. And so I sent an email with a list of all of the various restricted funds. And there are about 20, roughly, maybe 15 restricted funds, and wanted to know which of those would be most important to review. I have done an analysis on the airport capital funds, which we talked about last year, and that I can finish up that report shortly. But the rest is really a matter of which of those restricted funds would you like me to focus, and I can focus on
Would it be
those.
possible for you to forward us that email
Yes.
to the, I would say, Tom admin and then the 3 commissioners that are present?
Yes, let me,
Then we're looking at what those are.
I can
And
do that, or I can share my screen. Would that be faster?
well, we'd like to have them long-term anyway, if we
Sure.
could.
Yeah.
Then we can put some thought into which ones that we want to go over. I guess one of the questions that comes to mind is if looking at these restricted funds actually falls underneath the internal auditor, or if we would be better off spending our time on the departments, as I believe where the internal audit is supposed to be focused.
I work at your discretion, so whatever you feel is most valuable for me to do, that's what I'll do.
Right.
You able to forward us that email now, Cody?
Yeah, I'm gonna send it to those that I have an email, for whom I have an email, so just bear with me for one moment here. I
Hi,
have
Cody, it's
yours.
Karen. By restricted funds, are you referring to special revenue funds?
Yes. So Class B road funds, miscellaneous grants, impact fees, any fund that has a has an rules around how they can be spent. They're not general funds that have the ability to be spent without being tracked by their source, right? Like sales tax, it falls into the general fund, and property tax, those don't have restrictions on how they can be spent once they're in there. They're just commingled funds.
Okay, so we're talking about the Class B road fund, travel council, sales, healthcare sales tax, TRT. Those,
Yes.
those four special revenue funds?
Not just those, but yes, Class B, miscellaneous grants, impact fees, airport capital projects, TRT capital projects, library debt service, courthouse debt service,
Oh, okay.
municipal authority, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, anything where they have to be spent or governed by rules that determine in some way. So I don't have everyone's email, so I'm just going to send it to Quinn, Bill, Mark. That's the emails I have, and then you guys could forward that on to others.
I'll forward it on.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so I've sent those along. And again, Commissioner Winfield, to the extent that this committee wants me to focus on other areas like we have in the past in terms of internal auditing, our primary focus has been where funds have been collected by the county and ensuring that there is sufficient rules and regulations in place that there can prevent fraud. That's what we've looked at first. So,
Cody, how many years have you done the internal audit?
well, I'm getting old, so I'm gonna have to look at my notes before I tell you the answer. I think it's been 5 years, but let me.
Karen, is there an industry standard of the number of years that that someone will continue to do this?
Well, I would
Sure.
say that from my side, internal auditors are usually not are usually internal. They're not always hired. They're usually an internal employee in most cases.
Okay.
But I don't care if you have another thought.
I know we've had
The
discussions.
internal auditors are generally internal.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
by
we've
definition,
had
yes.
discussions in previous meetings about putting out a new RFP after 5 years, so.
Yeah, the
I
first
would
one,
say
I did the first one in 2020. So this one last year would have been the 5th year, and 2025 will be the 6th year. And I believe the contract is a year by year contract. And so at any time you have the ability to say, thank you for your services. We're going to send out an RFP, or we're just going to cancel it. Or, I appreciate working with the county. I'd love to continue to do this, but also recognize you have the discretion to do as you feel is right for the county. And so I work at your pleasure. So you have not officially said to me in 2025, please do the audit. you've not done that, I would be happy to do it. But if you feel like you want to move in a different direction, I move at your discretion. And I
Well,
didn't-
my question around that would be, what do we have that's of a timely manner that would, preclude us from putting out a new RFP this year?
We do have an RFP that was, it looks like it was drafted in, was that September or October? I believe that we had an RFP that was already drafted when I was looking back through the previous meetings.
But I don't think is there anything, Quinn or Mark, that our internal auditor is doing? And Cody, feel free to weigh in, that has a time sensitive nature, or should we put something out in the form of an RFP? And I guess along those lines, then you say that you are about to issue a report on the airport. Was that right, Cody? Was there anything else that?
No. I was waiting for the follow-up from the committee on which restricted funds you wanted me to focus. So I have not completed the report because I was anticipating that you wanted additional work done. So I have not billed for the work done in 2024 because I didn't believe it was sufficient to meet the scope of what you wanted.
So one random question again, being least amount of information in the room. All of the different either special revenue funds or restricted funds, essentially that's anything with any strings to it, being everything from allocations from the state to grant funds. Is that right?
Yeah, that was the last meeting in October. The question was,
Still need to submit for last year.
Yeah, okay, so I was just making sure I understood, because there's quite a few
Other ones on there.
different grants that
Thompson Springs.
we have, so keeping track of them. I think currently Jenny
I
Beth,
sent this to you.
and then each individual department is tracking those, right?
Who are we talking about? Sorry, for the minutes and listen.
It's fine. So on the topic of restricted funds and special revenue funds, my understanding is this audit essentially would encapsulate, or this review of the restricted funds would also encapsulate grants. And those grants come from a number of sources, and then they have a number of different requirements to track. And I'm asking the county's point of view. We have a lot of different departments that get them, be it everything from GCAD to CJC to a bunch of other organizations. Are we, right now, do we have just the department heads that track them? Or is it Jenny Beth in her position of grants, or is it just a combination? Combination, okay.
And I would say that external grants, generally speaking, Cody and Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, external grants are often monitored fairly meticulously as part of the external audit, correct?
That is correct. They would be part of the single audit.
Okay, perfect. I'm just,
In order to maintain the source of federal funding, we have to go through that single point audit. So they're scrutinized under the external audit function.
so right, same with the Family Support Center, and then they have their individual application. I'm just,
and I think the source of this came from the TRT discussion from last year.
gotcha.
That was the source.
And that's still actually a moving target, so to do a study on the TRT portion of this, which will most likely fall under last year's legislation, wouldn't have any value until we see how the legislation ends up this year, would be my recommendation. I would recommend that we just, if we're gonna continue with EFG through 2025, that we pick some departments and have those audited internally, and that we put out a RFP at the end of this year to just get us.
Yeah,
I guess we'll be into
when is-
year
when-
6, but
Yeah, when would be the ideal time to have an RFP? Is right now the ideal time to send out an RFP
For next year.
next year?
For 26.
Or is, or sort of past our date for 2025? Is that correct?
We're in 2025.
Well,
I know, yeah, but it's 2025. I mean, Cody, what work have we put into it so far? What work is, I mean, are we too late to go ahead and send out that RFP that we had basically back in September? Have we missed that deadline right there?
I don't know
try
that
to get
it's a
somebody-
deadline, but I do know he's in the middle of some work on the airport, so I think it would be good to finalize that, and we
Okay.
could probably task him with a few departments for 2025, which would then give it a deadline so that we have those by X date or whatever.
Mhm.
And then move forward with an RFP for 2026.
Okay.
Was the way yes.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that, and I think it would be, Cody, you can step in if you think this is incorrect, but I think it would be helpful to Cody if he was given a clear understanding of the scope of work that he needs to do. It seems like it's floating around. It starts from maybe the airport, then it broadens, and that leaves, your firm, your internal auditor, without a clear picture of the work that needs to be done and the timeline that it needs to be done on. And so perhaps you could provide him with some more clarity around which departments you would like him to take a look at. And if he's finished the work that you would like him to, or initially envisioned at the airport, let him go ahead and finalize that report, present it at the next meeting, and then move on to whatever departments you think are most significant that should be evaluated.
And Cody, can you give us some help on the departments that you have done your audits on in the last couple of years? Is that something you have
Yes.
readily available right now?
I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah, so we've looked at, in 2023, we reviewed the old Spanish Trail Arena and the airport. We looked at the Justice Court and the library. Those were the primary work done in 2023. In 2022, we looked at the jail. So we looked at the lockdown system used at the jail. That's the system they use to track all of the payments that come in. We looked at the Grand Center. We reviewed the payroll system. We looked at cash receipting and safekeeping of cash in the clerk auditor's office. That was the primary work done in 2022. In 2021, the work focused on bank reconciliation in the clerk auditor's office. We did some analysis on the lockdown system that we followed up again in 2023. We looked at recorder's fees, collections of recorder's fees, accounts receivable and grants in the clerk auditor's office. We looked at digitally signing checks if there's any issues there, accounts payable. We looked at the fuel cards and the system of issuing and using fuel cards, treasurer's trust account. And I could send you all these reports if you don't have them, so you don't have to remember all this. Most of this was clerk, auditor, and treasurer for this year. PTF reconciliation, purchasing policy, written policies and procedures for the clerk's office and treasurer's office, the opening of mail in the clerk auditor's office, and the external audit recommendations. That was
What were the
2021.
external audit recommendations about?
That was discussing looking at having written policies on how frequently that external audit should be put out to bid.
Okay,
You know what the conclusion of that was?
Okay, I will read you. The current county audit is 4 months late. This was written in 2020, October of 2020. The clerk auditor and county commission administrator were both unsure why there was a delay. The external auditor should be proactive in communicating with the county its data needs and timing. we suggest that the external audit function should be bid out every 3 to 4 years to ensure top service and market rates. This policy should be added to the clerk auditor's written policies and procedures. And then the follow-up later that month is the audit has now been complete. It includes a qualified opinion on the aggregate discretely presented component units. These component units are very small and generally would not require their own audit. We suggest the county add a small amount to the external audit contract for the county's general audit to cover these small component units. That was the findings.
So Cody, update me on what your focus is on at the airport then. You say you started in 2024 and haven't finished yet.
One of the things the commission had requested is when I met with the airport, I think it was actually your recommendation in 2023, there was some question about funds that were received in from ARPA and the CARES Act and CURSA that were primarily meant for funding the airport functions, and there are specific revenues that come in to the airport that are meant to pay for those already. And the question was, did those go to the general fund? And so it was really a reconciliation process to ensure that those were appropriately reconciled. So I requested information from the auditor's office for Gabe, and had done some analysis on whether or not that was appropriately done. And there were just a few areas where there may need to be some transfers made. I need to go back and finish the analysis and look at the notes, but that's what I'm going to present.
Well, then, in light of that, I mean, clearly we need to make sure that those funds didn't just go into the general fund, that they were kept at the airport. We would need to finalize that report, and I'm just wondering, as a body here, if we don't give Cody some direction to include the airport outside of those funds and as part of his internal audit moving forward, and pick a couple of other departments here for 2025, and then consider putting it out an RFP at the end of this year for.
Would it be the end of the year, or should we do it again in September? Because it looked like
Well, when I say the end of the year,
For 2026.
we would want to start prior to the end of the year, yeah.
I'm just trying to get that
No,
timing in my
note
head.
taken, yeah. I don't know, what are you guys' thoughts? Do we want to, I
Cody,
honestly,
when would be the ideal time for you to receive those departments? Like when, I mean, how much time basically are you gonna need to spend on the airport? And then when you're finished with the airport, when would you want a listing basically of other departments to look into? Rather than kind of going off the cuff right now and saying this department, that department, this department. Do we have till the next meeting to provide you with a list of that?
I think so.
What, how often, again, I wasn't a part of this committee last year, but how often does this committee meet?
the quarterly is what we were meeting last year, but I think we might have had a special meeting thrown in there regarding the financial statements. I'd have to go back and look.
Sure,
but
but yeah,
it is
quarterly is what we'd expect.
Yes.
Okay, great, that's all I wanted. So
And so we would possibly want to come up with something
we,
and not wait 3 months.
That's what I was.
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
we
I mean,
want
even
to
if it was a
do
couple weeks or,
I don't think we want to wait 3 months to.
it would, and so finish up with the airport, you said, Bill, and then pick a
Well,
couple of other.
Over
departments.
the financial portion of it, but then the airport, as far as overall, I know you dig into actual. Where
Yeah,
money changes hands and how it's dealt with and different things at the airport. I honestly don't quite understand what you dig into when you look at a department. Cody, maybe you could give us a.
yeah, sure.
brief
What I would suggest is two things. One, I'll give you a brief overview of what we've done in the past, but if you haven't reviewed the internal audit report from 2023 that discusses the airport, that would be a great place to start. So you can, it's a page and a half of of information about the airport, and that would provide you a really good understanding of what it is we looked at the airport. So when I meet with staff for a department, I asked them questions. Primarily, our focus was on where revenue is collected. So I asked them what revenues are collected at in your department, and tell me every way that money comes in. Tell me the procedures that are followed, any way that those get from a customer all the way to where they end up in the bank, and everything else that goes with it. And the airport's very unique because it doesn't actually collect very many funds directly. They really only collect directly. I think they collect concessions or something. That's pretty much it. Everything else is paid directly to clerk auditors. So there's not a lot of places to worry about money going missing. But that's generally the process. So the same thing when you go to like Old Spanish Trail Arena, tell me every place where money comes in, and let's talk about if there's any chance that fraud could occur. So for example, at the Old Spanish Trail Arena, it was recommended that 2 people go and open up the places where a customer would put money into for an overnight rental of a stall. Make sure there's 2 people there instead of just 1, because there's a lot of cash there, and that's where most of money goes missing is.
Let me interrupt you real quickly, Stephen. The county attorney had a question.
Yeah, sorry, I had a question earlier and then, so when we talk about restricted funds and we talk about special revenue funds, I think one of the things that would be really helpful when we do an audit or when we do a review is kind of best practices on documentation of expenditures on those restricted funds. So I think if we could highlight those things, I think that would be helpful when we look at those, if that comes up, because I know that there's been some scrutiny applied to the county. And I don't know if that's just a financial note or, kind of what best practices on documenting restricted fund expenditures. And I think the reason why I ask, and I think it's important, we have a lot of different grants that require a lot of different things. And then we also have that other special revenue that comes in. So I think highlighting and noting that, kind of some tips and tricks from both. I think Cody, if you're doing the report, obviously, but if Karen also, when you look at these things, kind of how to highlight and make sure we that we properly document things, but then we can make sure that that's cleaned up and do it in a way that really helps out the county. So I just want to note that.
I think, Cody, back to the airport, the one you're currently in the middle of. If there have been some funds that were just put into the general funds, if we could have a fairly simple tally or balance, if there needs to be some transfers so that it's not, clearly we've got Karen to read the technical portion of this, but a fairly fundamental synopsis for the commissioners here, at least for myself. I won't put anybody else at that point, but I need fairly simple verbiage as to that everything's okay, or if we need to make some changes there, correct?
That's what I will do.
And then I would say that if I don't honestly know if we want to come to a determination right now, but if we're going to add some other departments, I'm certainly open to it if you do have any suggestions.
I think that the departments that have the most complicated, I mean,
Yeah.
the collections,
I was
like
gonna say the exact same thing. Yeah.
whoever's the most complicated, and especially with these restricted funds, whoever's collecting the majority of these restricted funds. I mean, that's where it seems like the more complicated, the more opportunity for things to end up misplaced.
I guess the more public facing with cash transactions also is
Yeah,
important.
I think that's also a good one.
Or someone that collects fees frequently, or anytime, departments interacting with the public and,
Collecting cash.
yeah, that kind of thing.
We don't have any boards that fall under these guidelines, do we, that have any restricted funds or cash or anything? I mean, I'm just asking because I don't really think we do, but I don't know of anything. None of the boards I've ever sat on.
Right.
Boards expending funds or reviewing funds?
I guess I was more thinking along the lines of restricted funds that come in.
Well, I mean, obviously, TCAP,
Cab for sure,
has,
right?
but
Yeah.
I don't know of any board that with the exception of this board that has a budget. I mean, you guys have
Right.
10,000 here, but I
Well,
don't.
and that was a question that I was asking.
Yeah. I don't think there is, but I'd look to Quinn and Mark to correct me. I don't think there's any board that did that. The only other one I knew about was the study committee back a ways ago that had a budget.
Well, and I would say if we're looking at restricted funds, then what departments would we want to go to give Cody a little bit of direction on for a couple more this year and then.
What's on the current list now? What's your priority list?
And I would apologize, guys. I had a previous engagement at 11, and so I need to jump off. But I just sent the previous 4 years reports if you wanted to look at those, so you can see what work's been done, so that we don't potentially duplicate, or if I review those same again, at least we'd have a starting point. And if you'd let me know within the next 2 weeks or 30 days where you want me to focus, then I can start on and go in that direction.
And you say you just sent those, Cody?
Yes, I did.
I'm not seeing anything yet, so.
They may be in cyberspace, and if they don't come through, just let me know and I'll try to resend them again.
Okay, oh, there they came right there. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and we'll have some further discussion. Thanks for your time today.
Okay.
And we'll put out an email maybe from the admin as to the direction we want to go.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Good to see you all again. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Cody.
Thank you.
Bye.
And that came to Quinn, Mark, and myself, so I'll forward it again to the rest of you.
Yeah, just while he's doing that, yeah, I think that both, we should look at places that are, cash front, facing. But also I think that we should be looking at the departments that receive multiple, restricted funds and just make sure, because I mean, that seems like that's gonna be the spot where it's gonna be most complicated right there.
Who's that? Roads probably?
I think roads, what do we got? We got the travel council. I think that
Right,
they're there. GCAT seems like they have, because GCAT's got what? It's got like,
grants.
got the grant, it's got option B, and it's got TRT inside of it as well.
Right.
So all three of those, I think, would be one.
Family Support Center has a lot.
Do they?
Does it? Yeah.
Which one does?
Family Support Center.
Mhm.
I think they're
I don't think we can hit all of those.
Yeah,
but
sure, I'm just-
probably wanna
Yeah,
pick
no,
a
I'm just
couple.
Sounds
putting it
like-
out there.
Two maybe, right, as well as the airport.
Yeah, as well as the airport report, and have him finalize that
What
one.
about,
Osta.
I was gonna say, yeah, Oster collects a lot of cash, Sandflats collects cash too.
Maybe Sandflats, but the Oster was just done in 23.
Right.
I
Sure.
think you'd want to kind of like rotate them. through.
No, it makes, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
They did cash receiving at Ozone, or, I'm sorry, at Sandpots already. That's been part of the internal audit in the past.
Oh, it has. So that's been taken care of, basically. Okay.
And the library would be the other one that I would think that would.
They were just
But they just got taken care of as well.
23.
Yeah, 23.
So yeah, it looks like they've covered a lot of those.
Yeah, a lot of the cash is already kind of, clerk auditors already taken. care of.
Maybe we pick GCAT of the roads and give him some direction on those two,
Yeah, I think
as
that's
far
far.
as restricted.
Thing
funds.
GCAT or Travel Council?
I mean, I would think that GCAT, just because they have the multiple ones coming inside of it, right? Because they have their grants, they have their. Correct, but those are the grants, they're all done in the external audit, is that correct? The review to make sure that they're following.
How many can you do?
Well, he typically does 4 a year,
So why not do all of them?
the three of them, travel, GCAT.
The
and
travel, GCAD, roads and the airport. I mean, if you
We'll
get
make it
four,
Are you fine with that, Mark?
Yes.
Sending him that direction?
Yes.
I mean, do we need to vote on this, have a vote?
I don't understand.
hey, Karen, did you have thoughts on it?
Right?
And you're muted.
I am not as familiar with the specifics of the financial statements as you all are, and I think if you collectively come to a decision, that's great. I would just be very specific and get it to Cody as quickly as possible, and then ask him for a timeline as to when he thinks the different reports are going to be finished. I agree with Councilmember Martinez's suggestion that if you are to go out to for RFP on source for an internal auditor, that be done in the fall. That is the appropriate timeline for the next fiscal year.
Perhaps it'd be wise to have, Karen, I don't, not trying to put you on the spot, but have Karen help facilitate what it is being specific on these, whatever we're requesting to utilize the language,
Proper
the
language.
proper language about what we would want to see and being specific enough on it that, because we're not, this isn't our rodeo. We don't know this stuff as well as you do. And if you said, hey, if we just say, hey, will you look at these? You may have kind of the catch-all version of like inspect A, B, C, all the way through. I don't know if that would be, I just think
Sure, I mean-
utilizing your expertise, because otherwise what's gonna happen is, I think Cody's just gonna give us, not, good, bad, or indifferent. I think Cody's gonna give us what he wants to give us,
Yeah.
whereas you might have, yeah,
Some
that-
specific suggestions as to,
yeah.
I'd be happy to do that. But
Sorry.
we should, I guess is your focus, is your concern that restricted funds are not being recorded properly, or that restricted funds are not being spent in the appropriate way?
I think there's been some scrutiny of the county about how we just got audited. And I think there was some scrutiny about how some of the funds were expended in a way. That's oh, and we can't see you, but you can hear us, right?
I didn't do that. I had nothing to do with it.
Oh,
Can you hear us?
I can hear you and I can see you, and my audio and
Sorry.
video are on, so I'm not sure what happened.
Yeah,
but-
the video cuts out on our end, so we think everything's
Okay.
crashing. So what I was saying is essentially, there's been some scrutiny, there's been an audit that was done. And I think best practices would have us clean up, or evidence or document how we're making some of those some of the restricted expenditures. I think that would be helpful for the county to know that. And I think those things have existed with having the same internal and external auditor, whether that's good, bad, or indifferent. I just think that's important for you to know the background of it. And so having, that's where my request for tips and tricks on avoiding that, documenting it, creating the notes. I think that would just help clean up, best practices.
Okay, so we want specific review of the internal controls surrounding disbursements for restricted funds in these particular departments that you've selected. It sounds like you came up with 4 of them. Is that correct? The board has decided on 4 specific
That is.
departments.
Right.
Yeah, we can do things like ask him to select a sample of 30 disbursements, for example. And you would want the submitter, the reviewer, the approver, the documentation that is related to the specific restriction, and have him look at 30 disbursements for each of these different departments. And that gives you a solid sample size, a reasonable sample size. Looking at 2 or 3 is not sufficient. But he could pick those, by looking at the 4 quarters throughout the year. And yeah, I'd be happy to document these suggestions to give a little bit more specifics to his work.
Okay, and according to somewhere here I just read, we do need to make an actual vote on that process according to our bylaws, so you'll have to remind me which 4 departments. I know he's in the middle of the airport.
Airport roads.
GCAT and travel
Travel
council.
council.
And so if one of you guys want to make a motion on that.
I move that we audit the roads, GCAT, travel council,
And finalize the airport.
and finalize the airport.
Is
And
it
that we will have our internal auditor.
actually auditing it, or having the auditor?
Is
Just
it-
look into those.
Is it a review?
I-
Is it a review? Go ahead.
Review, that sounds.
Go ahead.
Well,
Karen.
your internal auditor is not giving you assurance in the way your external auditor is. So he is evaluating the internal controls surrounding those disbursements. he's not, a review means something in the assurance world, as does an audit. And I don't
Evaluate.
believe he's giving you that assurance. He's looking into this, he's evaluating it, he's documenting what he did, and he's providing the results and making recommendations.
Auditing?
So Karen, what would be, what are we actually asking? This is again where we're leaning
Well, I
on
just
you
wondered
for
if
the.
Yeah, you're gonna ask him to evaluate the internal controls related to disbursements. Would you like me to send you something on that so you don't have
That'd be
to
great.
dictate it?
Well, the
Okay,
reason why is that they have to make the motion and it has to be consistent with that. And that's why I'm
Oh, okay.
suggesting you help with Mark to kind of, yeah.
And I think Brian's got it. He's gonna make another stab at it.
Yeah, I move to have Cody evaluate the controls related to disbursement of roads, GCAT, travel council, and to continue with the airport report.
okay,
Second.
good.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion by Martinez, seconded by Adler. Unanimous vote.
And the direction you guys wanted Mark to work with Karen to put that together.
Correct.
Yes, and yeah, and communicate that to Cody.
Did I say travel council?
You did.
I think it should be a Moab office. I amended
Oh, yeah.
Moab office of tourism.
Right.
We renamed.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to our agenda. That takes care of items 1, 2.
RFPs.
The RFP, we decided we're gonna work on that in the fall. Does that?
No, this is for the external auditor. I think this is
No, I'm
something.
looking
that
at number 3.
Oh, okay, internal.
Internal, so
thought you were on
do we
number
need
4.
to have a vote that we're gonna look at that this fall?
I think, can't we just kick the can down the road, right?
I think we do, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna,
So we should probably talk about that at our Q3 meeting.
well, I think by 2, we would talk about it, or 3, we wanna have it
We should
put
have
out.
the- we
We
should
wanna
be-
be given
I'm
direction.
struggling at the screen.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I would think at 2, we review the RFP that we have, make any changes, so that by 3, we're making decisions or sending it out.
Okay, those are agenda items we're adding to the next meeting on you, Quinn and Mark. Okay, so item 3,
The internal auditor contract, RFP.
and then item 4 is the external auditor request RFP.
Has an engagement letter been requested of Larson for 2024?
We do not
Or
have
are
a
you-
date yet, but I talked to Cam about it, so he was gonna request one today.
Did you hear that?
Super. Yes, sir. Thank you.
And then once again, how many years has Larson's been doing this external audit?
I think last year was his 3rd year, and I think we had discussion around the fact that it's time to put out that external audit request for proposal.
Okay, and it was just stated right there, every 3 to 4 years, we should be sending out an RFP for it.
So we're in 2025 is our 4th year of Larson, right?
So could we also get some help in putting out that RFP, some verbiage, Karen, for our admin team here? An RFP for the external auditor, or? Are we?
Yes.
saying-
Are you contemplating continuing with Larson for 2024? It's kind of late in the game to be looking for a 2024 auditor because it's already past
No, for
2024.
2025.
Okay, for 2025, yes, happy to assist with that RFP and consistent with the discussion for the internal auditor, that should be that for 2025, you would want to put out an RFP in the late summer or fall of 2024. Frequently, an external auditor will want to do what we call interim work before fiscal year end to start doing testing. This is how you get ahead of the cycle. And so that interim work would likely be completed in October or November. So you would want to have your auditors selected in August or September. So putting
Okay.
out an RFP in June or July would be about the right time.
That would be at our next meeting. We would want to make sure that we have that RFP out as well. That's our Q2 meeting.
And maybe.
At least to discuss it.
Yeah, maybe we could use some help also in where we could advertise these. I know in the past, and I don't know where we've advertised, but possibly just in local papers and whatnot. But if we could get these out to get a little broader
Interesting.
input from other companies when we do put these out.
Yes. There are clearinghouses that public accounting firms use. And the one that clears that I look at is called GovWin. But I can get you more specifics on that. And I get information on RFPs across the country.
Okay, thank you. And then in this item 4, that we've got questions here, is a single audit required in fiscal year 2024?
That's going to depend on the amount of federal funding that's been
Yeah.
spent, and you may need it every year.
Okay,
That
so it
correct?
is, you're saying
Okay.
yes?
Typically, we do one every year. Yeah.
Okay, every year, okay.
Okay.
Thank you. And so do we need a vote on that action item for number 5 then?
For number 4,
Number 4, excuse me.
for, to what, to,
To move,
direct.
to move that forward in the next agenda item, or do we just put it on the next agenda and vote on it then? Actually, we probably need to vote now to give direction.
You're going to expend resources because you're gonna have Karen create it. so
Yes.
Make
Sure.
it cleaner.
Who would I ask for the RFP for the prior auditor? Would that be, would Alicia have that or something?
Alicia,
I would think Mark or Quinn, that unless you guys have
Yeah.
some. I would think that our admin would be able to track it down.
Yeah,
Okay. Was there any
So-
dissatisfaction with the RFP other than you felt that it didn't get circulated widely enough?
I don't know of any. I actually haven't ever seen the previous RFP, so maybe if we do send that to Karen, if you could get it to us, then we can at least look at it, review it as well. It was prior to my coming on the commission, so I haven't seen it either, Karen.
Okay.
So
So I
one
understand you want me to
One-
work with Vice Chair Martinez on the specific wording for the internal audit work this year, and then work on developing an RFP for an external audit. Are those my 2 tasks, my takeaways?
And actually,
so.
didn't we decide we're gonna do both RFPs
at the next.
At the next meeting.
at the next meeting, right? So
Yeah, it would be an RFP for the internal and the external.
Okay.
one thing maybe to point out or to note is if the commission or the committee is looking to have these be limited to a particular scope that maybe from the onset we put in the RFP that this is going to be, not to exceed, 3 years or 5 years or whatever they're wanting to have considered there. If that's a concern that they have, that way whoever joins on, everybody's memory will be refreshed by the fact that the original RFP said not to exceed 3 years or 5 years. If
Yeah,
that's- Yeah.
Yeah, generally it'd be a term of 1 or 2 years with the option of the county to extend for 2 more additional years.
Sure, but I would almost specifically put in there because I could see somebody from the outside if they've applied and then all of a sudden the county's complaining or griping or whatever it may be. that they're still there, then maybe from the onset, let them know, hey, look, we're looking to do this for this amount of time, renew X amount of times, but not to exceed this amount. Because I think it's hard, otherwise we're relying on institutional knowledge, because it's hard to keep track of all this stuff, so.
This has changed everything.
You know, on the flip side, you also don't want to necessarily paint yourself in a corner. I'm just thinking about what happened during the pandemic. We had clients that had engaged us for 5 years, and then there was the pandemic, and no one wanted to meet in person, and no one had the bandwidth, if you will, to go out for RFP and start that whole process again. So we had several of them that were extended for an additional year just because of extenuating circumstances. But we could say it is the plan of the audit committee not to exceed a term of 4 years. That
Yeah,
way, that's the plan.
Yeah.
But we may need to deviate in extenuating circumstances.
I just think it's fair to list some sort of heads up so that
Mhm.
there's no.
Yeah.
You know,
So then a motion and a vote on an external RFP, external auditor RFP.
So I move to direct Karen to work with admin on an external RFP to be reviewed at our Q2 meeting.
So the internal or no?
Well, we already handled that, didn't we? Okay.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
And generally, what month will that be?
So we have not done with it. We have to have 2 RFPs. We need one for the internal and we're
Yes.
gonna need one for the external.
So do we need a separate vote or can we just include it in this one? I would think we're fine making it for both
Are you okay
RFPs.
amending that?
I'll amend the previous motion to include the internal RFP as well.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimous, Glenn. I think we've covered the bylaws review then, unless somebody had something that we didn't get finished before Cody came back online.
Yeah, seems like good.
And gentlemen, what is the tentative schedule for the next meeting? What month will it be in?
May.
I don't,
I would say we probably want to look at our calendars right now and come up with that, but yes, I
May or
would.
June. What would be better? How much would it be better if we moved it to later in the quarter so that you have more time to write the
Yeah.
RFPs?
well, I can do it based on your timeline.
Okay, and so then I guess my question would be, is the meeting should probably be so that we. At that meeting, we're gonna want an update on where we are with our component units, right? So
Maybe late May, probably, because June is when they're all due, is that right?
I think they're all due in mid-June, right?
So we want
They're due, yes.
Yeah,
Never ready, but they're due.
to, before that,
We wanna
well,
go
maybe
to
mid-May.
April?
What's
Want
that?
to move it into April?
my April is crazy. I think that's too soon, honestly, and also my April's crazy. I have a spring break, a bunch of travel, and a bunch of other stuff going on.
Well, maybe early May
I
then.
was thinking, yeah, early to mid-May works for me, for sure. Maybe right after that first commission meeting in May. First commission meeting is the 6th. That week of the 6th to the 9th sometime.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what does
so-
your 8th look like?
My 8th, so right now it's free. Yeah, I mean,
So mine,
things always pop up, but you know.
how's that?
I'm
look for
sorry,
you?
I won't be in town on the 8th. I'll be at a Houston Public Sector seminar.
How about the 7th?
About 7, Karen.
Yes, sir, that would be fine.
7 work for you guys?
Yeah, me too. I've just
Yeah.
got one meeting.
Could we
that day, but-
do it in the afternoon? Is that for you guys?
Yeah, late
Yeah.
in the afternoon works better for me.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So
Okay, so
maybe
what are we thinking time wise?
3.
3 or 4-ish, something like that would be good
Does-
for me.
But what, Karen, what time zone are you in? Because we don't wanna make it so late that it's.
She's in Central.
I'm in Central, but I'm happy to work at your convenience.
I would say we do it 3 o'clock then,
Okay.
Okay,
if that's all right with everybody else.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And prior to that meeting, I will plan on circulating a draft of the two RFPs. So that way you have time to look at it prior to the meeting, and if you have any comments on it, we can discuss it at that meeting.
Okay,
And that will go to, so that will go to Chairman Winfield, Vice Chair Martinez, Secretary Hadler,
That's right.
and whom else?
Tom Evan,
Yeah, admin, please.
part-time.
Very good. Thank you.
So do we have anything else?
Yeah, other agenda item that I had on there, it wasn't on here, I just kind of joined this, I wasn't exactly sure of the, the authorities or the duties of this board right here. But I was just looking, have we instituted all the recommendations from the state audit right now? Have those been applied, and have we made sure that we're in compliance? One of the questions that I had had to do with the trail ambassadors, and I just think that maybe at our next meeting, we could look inside of that, because it looks like when I read the final audit letter, I think that it said that the state does not recognize trail ambassadors as an approved
Motion.
as a promotional expense.
Right.
And I think that I looked at it here, I had a couple of questions, because we had a Fund 47, either which way, yeah, there was 526,000 that basically went from TRT, and it looks like it's inside of the trail maintenance revenue. And Stephen, I don't know if you'd be able to kind of provide the county's position on that as well, if you could look into that.
And this, so we'll put this on our agenda for
Yeah.
discussion at the next meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, like you said earlier, I don't think right now it's worth looking into, as legislation's about to change. So,
If you want to just send me any kind of your breakdown of the things you'd like me to look at, then I can.
Yeah.
I can.
I had a couple of questions.
Sure,
One, it looked like it looked like it was an expense, but then it's a contribution. I just had some
Yeah,
confusion on the budget right here.
Yeah.
How it kind of like moved over, and then is that,
Yeah, definitely. If you want,
still in the restricted fund, or is it being used properly?
you want to tell me the questions now? You want to email them?
I'll email them to you. It'll be easier.
Okay.
You put the rest of us on the email too?
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
Great.
And it's just tightening it down. So it's looking at the, which fund is it in?
Well, it started off in Fund 23.
Okay.
And it was a trend, it looks like it's a contribution of 526,000. And hold on, I gotta kind of move over here. It doesn't all fit in one page on this thing, 526,000 and 134. And it was listed as an expense for responsible trail. But then it shows up here in Fund 47 under trail maintenance right there. So it probably should have been under a contribution, not listed as an expense right there. And then just when I go back and read the state auditor's actual letter, they did mention that it's that this is not an allowed use. And I just think it would be a good idea to have an opinion from the county attorney on if that is or is not an allowed use right there.
Then maybe we would want at the next meeting that state auditor's letter as this on this agenda item as one of the documents, if we could.
So I'm looking at, so you want me to look at the 526 and the 134, right?
The 134?
Yeah,
Yeah.
134.
Oh, yeah, 526, 134, correct, yeah.
Okay, and what's the 130, is the 134 is embedded within the 526?
No, that's the entire number right there, $536,134.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking.
Yeah, no, that's where I got
Okay.
confused. My screen splits right here, so I wanted to make sure that the whole number went over.
And it's that expenditure, and then anything apart from that one?
That was it right there.
Okay.
And then if we could, admin also, can we send out an actual invitation to all the parties so that we
Done.
include, you got it?
I did not include Gabe.
Okay, well, I think we need to maybe let him know for what items we want on the next agenda. We were discussing, we want something from him. Remind me where we were. It was in regards to the component units and an update, so he's gonna have a portion in the next audit committee that we would want him here for. Just so he doesn't get the same day notice.
And those, you know, off the top of your head, if those funds are TRT or TRCCA, or are they just general funds?
It looks like it came from the TRT.
All right.
I'd have to dig back into it, I don't know.
Yeah, I can look at those.
All right, anybody have anything else?
Sure, we can take any comments from the floor.
That's the start of the meeting, right?
We had a few citizens to be heard earlier.
I'll write correspondence then, I'll write it that way, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Mark, Quinn, anything before we adjourn?
No, sir, I don't.
All right, I'll adjourn the meeting. 11:33. Thanks, gentlemen.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Karen.
Thanks, Karen. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time.
Bye-bye.
Karen,
Yes,
nice to meet
thank
you.
you so much. Nice to meet you. Bye-bye.